Okay, welcome. And today
Thank
we
you.
have Liesel Daisley, the lovely Liesel. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. And Liesel Daisley is the founder of an organization called SAVE. So
Yes.
we're gonna jump right on and basically ask you,
Okay.
Liesel, what is SAVE?
Okay, so SAVE is an organization that deals with domestic abuse.
Mhm.
We actually help anybody that is a victim or survivor of domestic abuse, whether male, female, it doesn't matter. We help everyone. So we raise awareness of the issue and we offer free counseling, free legal advice, basically hand holding. We're really grassroots organization. So we like to meet people where they're at in the community and so on and help them become free of abuse, help them to stand on their feet again, help them with self-esteem. And, we try to do workshops that will help them be able to become self-sufficient and independent once again, because as you would know, once you are a survivor of domestic violence, usually you don't have any self-esteem anymore because of the constant abuse. And as we know, abuse comes in many forms. So it's not just physical, it's also the emotional, the psychological, the verbal,
Purple.
and even economic abuse as well, people withholding funds from their partner and so on. So they're all forms. So we help people no matter what form of abuse they are experiencing.
Okay.
That was a bit of a mouthful.
No, but it was information that you needed to share. You touched on something there, and I just want to explore that because
Sure.
it's probably I guess a taboo area for a small island society. But you spoke about men. So my
Hmm.
question is, do you get a lot of men coming to your organization seeking help?
I would not say a lot, but
Mhm.
we do get some men coming to the organization. And I guess because it is taboo and men are a bit embarrassed to speak out and say that they are being abused. But yes, we have had men, and we do have men that would come forward for help. I've seen men abused in some really serious ways. Some of them would have ended up even in the hospital with their injuries. Yeah, yeah. So, and in cases where women don't feel physically strong enough to inflict bodily harm, then they will damage the man's belongings, whether it is his car. And as you know, for a man, his car is his prized possession. So as a woman, you know that if you slash all four of his tires, or if you break his windshield or something, or pour acid on his paint job, he would
Whoa.
be very angry. So if you can't lash out physically, there are other ways that women use to lash out. So yes, men are abused. A lot of time they don't report it because they're afraid that they'll get laughed at, that the police would laugh at them. But they do call, even if it is just to have someone to talk to or to listen to them.
Whoa.
Yes.
I, I mean, whoa.
And
I,
having said that,
uh-huh.
men in same-sex relationships
Mhm.
also are subject to a lot of abuse as well. Lots of jealousy there. Yeah. So we also get calls as it relates to that.
Whoa. I think you've just opened up a whole different conversation that we will have to probably set
But
aside
another
time
time,
to discuss. But
no
I
problem.
know that over the years that you have shared your personal journey where abuse is concerned. So for persons, oh, they're caught up in this cycle of abuse, what vision can you give them for life beyond the abuse?
Well, first of all, and you said a good word there, the cycle of abuse.
Mhm.
So even before you can see past the cycle is important to understand it. And a lot of people don't recognize the cycle that they're caught up in because they're caught up in the cycle, right? So just imagine a circle, and at the top of the circle, you have the abuse, whether it is the physical, the verbal, the emotional. And then when you come around the circle now, you have the honeymoon period where the abuser apologizes. They may bring you chocolates or maybe buy you lingerie. Yeah, so now you've gone from the abuse to the honeymoon period where he or she apologizes. And then at the bottom of the circle, the abuser starts to fantasize about abusing you all over again. Yeah, because don't forget, it's about power, it's about control, right? So once they fantasized about abusing you again, then it goes back to the top of the circle where the abuse happens. So then you get caught up in that cycle of abuse, the honeymoon period, the abuser fantasizing, abuse. So 10 years have passed and you're still in this cycle. 15 years have passed, 3 years later, you're still in this cycle. 20 years have passed and you're still in this cycle. And you haven't even realized that you're caught up in this cycle. It is important, however, to talk to people and to get help. And, unfortunately, there are persons that have passed away. They're no longer with us because of the fact that they kept it to themselves and they didn't speak up and tell anybody out of fear. Sometimes too, the abuser would threaten you and you're afraid to tell anybody. But there is life beyond abuse and it is possible. And as you mentioned, I'm living testimony that you can get out of the abusive situation and have a life after. It requires, though, a lot of support because you cannot do it in your own strength, right? You need the strength and the help and support of family, of friends, and of course, the Almighty God. So it is important, though, to make that first step and tell somebody and get help. And, every day is going to be different. They say that the victim of abuse, they go back to their perpetrator 7 times before they leave for good. And I too was caught up in that cycle where I forgave and went back, forgave and went back. And there's nothing wrong with forgiving. Forgiving is important because that is actually a very important part of your healing process to be able to forgive. But now, when it is a case where your life is in danger, then you may have to really consider seriously leaving that situation. Am I telling people to leave their spouse or to leave their partner? No, but if your life depends on it, you might want to seriously consider it, even if it is temporary until you can get counseling or help or what have you. So the journey for me was, it took a few years to be able to look into the mirror and see somebody that was beautiful and confident and strong and all these things, because I did not see that when I looked in the mirror. I saw ugly. I saw, I couldn't even recognize myself at one point when I used to look into the mirror. But, I credit my family and I credit God for being able to give me that strength to overcome all of those hurdles and the low self-esteem. Yeah.
You said a lot there again, and you hit on something that I guess I never painted this picture in my mind, but when you were talking about the cycle abuse and the fact that there's a point where the abuser starts to shower the person with gifts and stuff like that. Typically you see the men as the abusers. So to think of a woman doing that, it is not a picture that most people paint in their mind. So women actually would do that, like well, not necessarily lingerie, but buy gifts for men and stuff like that to try to get back in their good books?
It depends on, I guess, the status of the woman. So for
Mm-hmm.
women that cannot afford to do that, they do other things. They may give the person a lot of sex, right?
Okay.
Because that might be their way of showing that they're sorry and showing that they love them and showing them that they care. They may cook their favorite meals, they may be on their best behavior and, do other things. A woman might not be able to perhaps buy him a diamond watch or something, but she might be able to do other things to say, I'm sorry,
I'm
and it would never
sorry.
happen again. Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa. So when you were talking about the different elements, obviously, of abuse, you touched on the different components in terms of emotions and stuff like that. So the government has made mental wellness a
Mhm.
mandate for the country. What are your feelings on this? And will SAVE be part of developing any of the programs on a national level?
Well, we were in discussions with the government as it relates to the SIDS. As you know, right now, the government is developing the small island states and so on, and mental health is, one of the priorities. People is basically one of the priorities.
Mhm.
And well, we have our own programs that we do for persons. But yes, we're always open to work with government. We would have collaborated with the government in the past, and we're in talks with them currently.
Well, I think what they have embarked on is fantastic. Yes, there's a lot of ground to cover, but
A
the fact
lot.
that we have started,
Mhm.
I think definitely says a lot.
There's a
So
long
with
way to go still, but at least it's a start. You have to
very much
start
so,
somewhere. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So your organization, you obviously mentioned persons getting in contact with you. So how can someone get in contact with SAVE?
Yeah. Well, now everybody's on social media. So
Mhm.
we are on Instagram, Save Barbados on Instagram. They can also email us at contact@save.bb. And our phone number is 851-7283. But they can always send us a message on Instagram. When you're in an abusive situation, it's not always I guess, convenient if your perpetrator is nearby to pick up the phone and make a call, but you can, easily send a message on Instagram, save BB Barbados, save Barbados.
Okay. And how about
Yeah.
volunteers?
Yes, always looking for volunteers, persons who want to help, whether it is in counseling, and we would do training, answering hotlines, anything at all you want to volunteer and do, whether it is social media marketing, outreach, raising funds, we're open to volunteers
Okay.
always.
So the number that you gave just now is a hotline number as well,
Yes,
or yeah?
yes, yes,
And that's
yeah,
24 hours.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm
Yes.
going to make sure that we also put up the contacts so that persons will have them readily available because with
Yeah.
with my with the group and the things that we're working on, what we're aiming to do is to create a directory
Mm-hmm.
um, on our website that we will have the contact information for all the relevant non-governmental
Right.
organizations, even government,
Yeah.
offices and stuff like that, that anybody can just go on and find everything there by few clicks, you know.
Yeah. Sounds good.
So I know we had a discussion on this before in terms of a shelter in Barbados because
Mhm.
people figure I can't run and go and at a relative house. They may not want me there, you know. Some people, I think some people are actually afraid to take in persons who are victims of abuse because they're probably concerned that the perpetrator may come and cause damage or something at their own premises.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a shelter here in
Yes,
Barbados.
there is a shelter here on the island. If anybody needs to go to a shelter, they can contact the police, and the police will do the necessary process to get them in the shelter. Yeah, but they can contact the police force.
Do you by any chance know like I guess the success rate of persons coming out of the shelter? How, because I think my struggle sometimes is just thinking that we're on a little rock. You know, it's not like the US that you can move to another state or something like
Right,
that, you
right,
know.
right.
So I am always, I guess, trying to quantify certain things based on the fact that Barbados is such a small country.
Yes.
And then to, in addition to that question, people with children, shelter accommodates.
Yes, they can accommodate women with their children. Yes.
Okay. And you don't know
Yeah.
how many
I'm not
persons.
sure how many children,
Mm,
but I do know that they can accommodate a woman with children, but I cannot speak to the numbers, unfortunately. And as far as statistics go, I'm not sure of their success rate, as you mentioned. But there is a shelter on the island, and if persons are being abused, they can reach out to the police to get help, and they can also apply for a protection order, which would, mandate that the perpetrator stays X amount of feet away from you for X amount of time, 12 months or what have you.
okay. So let
Yeah.
me just say this. Some university students out there, this is information that we need to get, put together. We need some surveys done. We need something so that we can have some statistics to help organizations like SAVE and other organizations that are doing such fantastic work. So Liesel, are there any programs outside of the volunteer program, but any programs where persons who, I guess, may recognize that somebody in their family or a close friend may be going through abuse and want to be able to somehow get, support. I know there's some people that do these confrontation things where they try to get persons to recognize, oh, you have an issue going on here. Do you facilitate an intervention? Yeah. Do you facilitate something like that in terms of grooming those persons, those kind of persons who may want to help somebody in need?
And that's the thing with almost forcing somebody to get help, especially if they don't really want it. What will happen is that they would end up going back to the situation. So yes, you can talk to them, and yes, you can encourage them to leave and show them the benefits of leaving and so on, which is important. But at the end of the day, that person has to ultimately make their own decision and come to that place where they are ready to leave. Because at one point I left because, my mother strongly suggested it, but in my heart, I wasn't ready. I still felt like I could make this work, So I still ended up going back, and I didn't actually leave until I was really ready to leave. But what we can do, if we do workshops, as I mentioned, in terms of self-esteem building and so on. So if there are persons who want to maybe volunteer in terms of speaking and presenting at the workshops, you might be a motivational speaker or something, you can certainly reach out to us and be a part of the workshop in terms of being a presenter. Yeah.
All right, one last question.
Sure.
And this is basically a question so that the persons out there who may be watching this and they're going through some kind of abuse by a partner,
Mm-hmm.
at any point in time, because I know I have seen this in documentaries, some documentaries, and even, I guess, the proverbial Lifetime movie.
Mm-hmm.
But at any point in time when you were in that cycle, did you blame yourself? Think this is my fault that, you know, I'm getting this abuse. I'm the reason I have to stay with him because everything is my fault. Because I said,
No.
I've seen this on movies and stuff, and I've always questioned it, but I
Yeah.
never asked the question.
I never felt that way. And I think that was a lot to do with how I was raised because,
Mm-hmm.
my parents raised me with self-esteem and all of those things. So I didn't feel like, this is my fault, I'm doing something wrong. I always knew it was the other person. Um, but what happened to me was I started to lose my self-esteem and my courage and my own self to the point where I didn't recognize myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I still knew that I couldn't remain in the situation, and I still knew it was not my fault, that I had not caused this situation. Was I walking around on eggshells? Yes, because I was trying to avoid confrontation. I was trying to avoid, as we would say in Bajan vernacular, a noise. So yes, I walked on eggshells, but only to avoid confrontation, not because I felt like I was doing something wrong.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it is a fact that there are people who start to believe that it is their fault. If they're better, if they're good enough, if they're slimmer, if they're taller, if their hair is longer, if they're prettier, and it will never be enough. That's the truth. You can never do enough because that person, they want to abuse you. So no matter what you do, no matter what you say, they'll abuse you because they want to.
Yes. Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So I thank you, Liesel, for sharing the work of your foundation. Obviously, you've shared some things that hit close home to home for you as well. So I just want to thank you. And I'm hoping that we can have another conversation so you'll come back sometime and chat with me again, right?
Sure.
There.
For
So
sure.
thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you too.
You're
It's good to
welcome
see you.
too. And it's nice to see you. So thank you for joining us today on the chat. And if you like our videos, subscribe to our channel so that you can receive that alert once we've posted another one to share with you. Until then, Perry out.